So again, we'll just give people a little bit more time just to join in. As you can see on the screen, they are our corporate partners and our partners who continue to power ARC360, if you like. So a huge shout out to ASIS, BMS, APPS, Copart, Emacs, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, and S&G Response. And also to our partners, the Green Part Specialists in DARSA and the Innovation Group. So we'll get things moving, and as always, like to do a little bit of a disclaimer to give these guys some cover in terms of the conversations that are about to take place. We've said it in previous weeks, but things are moving so rapidly right now that what we say right now might not be so relevant a bit later on today. So the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee, or other group or individual. Please respect all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. And joining us today then, we've got Phil Blowers, Commercial Director of Indasa Abrasives. We've got Peter Cox, European Motor Claims Procurement Manager of QBE. And we've got Dave Sargent, Managing Director of Gemini Accident Repair Centres and Chairman of AutoRace. So let's come back and say a little hello to everyone. Right, great to have you guys join us. Thank you very much indeed, and great to have everyone here with us today. So let's have a little bit of an insight into where we're at and who you are individually, in case anybody is not familiar with yourselves. And I'd come across to you first, Dave, if I may.
Yeah, Dave Sargent, MD of Gemini. We've got 29 sites, or did have pre-COVID. I think we've still got the same, fortunately. So, yeah, decent size repairing group in the UK, and chairman of AutoRace, the apprenticeship charity for the industry as well.
Fabulous, thank you, Dave. And Dave joined us, what are we, 6 weeks ago now? I think it probably was, maybe even longer.
Longer, I think.
You lose count. So we'll catch up on what's been happening with Gemini for sure. And Phil joins us from Indasa now. It's kind of a novel one, this, because we've, apart from a couple of big paint companies, we've not really had, if you like, the supply chain or product suppliers represented in previous weeks. So Phil, just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you for inviting us along. Phil Blowers from Indasa Abrasives UK. For those who know us, we're based down in Colchester, down in Essex. Obviously, being an integral part of the UK market, I would say, for the last 25 years as a brand. And obviously, delighted to be here today to join you guys to discuss everything that's going on currently within the UK market.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Phil. And Peter, representing the insurers, if you like, today. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Peter, and QBE.
All right. Well, Peter Cox, European Motor Claims Procurement Manager. As probably some of you may or may not know, QBE in the UK is a commercial insurer when it comes to motor, but we are part of a global insurance group that insures and reinsures pretty much anything and everything you can think of, from one man and his delivery motorcycle on his delivering his fast food to satellites and everything in between. So a vast range of products and services that we provide generally in the insurance space. But obviously today my focus and my responsibility is to deal with motor, specifically in the UK and Europe.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Peter. Okay, so as is per usual, we will take a look at the data sets for this week. So we've got our usual Integral data sets, and again, courtesy of Ollie Chambers and the team there at Integral. So there is our heat map, if you like, of the UK. And again, as normal, the darker spots are obviously those higher volumes of claims which are taking place. So not a great deal of change there. What we have seen is a 12% increase in week-on-week claims volume. So compared to last week, 25% increase in month-on-month claims volume. So this week compared to the same in June, a 7% of volume coming from the new hotspots, which we will look into, and also claims spread over 389 postcodes now. Last week it was 350 something, if memory serves me correct. And the new hotspots are Livingstone, Clacton-on-Sea, Melton Mowbray, Manchester, Birmingham, and Omagh, Scotland. And the postcodes that relates to is EH54, CO15, LE13, M41, B26, and BT78. That's your hotspots. And the top 6 postcodes by volume at the moment: E12, G14, TW18, LU1, CM20, and NG5. And just to provide some clarity, that data is pulled from enterprise customers, i.e. those claims requiring an enterprise rental, which equates to about a third of all claims, plus the addition of its own claims business data, which handles claims for brokers. So let us come back. So I'm going to jump across to you, if I first may, Peter. So in terms of claims, volumes, that is obviously the key to this industry, if you like. What are you experiencing there at QBE?
Well, at QBE, being a commercial insurer, I guess we're a little bit different to the private lines. We're seeing that our claims volume is actually remaining low. So we've not seen that 25% increase month on month that you've just alluded to there. Our claims typically are below 50% of what we would expect this time of year. Obviously, due to the COVID, we're also seeing that some of our clients are reluctant to have vehicles repaired for minor damage or relatively minor damage, so they'll hold on to the vehicle, make it road legal, and carry on using it rather than put it into the repairer network. And I think there's some hangovers from that, from, I guess, the early days with some repairers closing down, some parts difficulties with regards to supply. And that quickly generated a perception, I think, with some of our larger fleet customers that the vehicle wouldn't be back out on the road in a short space of time. So hence the reason that they're reluctant to let go of the vehicle until they see, I guess, a more business as usual, or business as it used to be, should I say.
Yeah. And do you sort of have a, is there a timeline on that in terms of your own kind of workings or thinking when that's, when these vehicles might start coming into the market?
I think it's like all these things really to do with COVID. It's all a confidence issue. So I think once the customer base feels that, one, the supply chain is there and is able to deliver as it used to do, and two, they're seeing, I guess, their own businesses being back to normal in terms of both the volume that they're dealing with and their own people. I think all those factors play into what these people see as normal. It's all a perceptional thing and confidence, but it's slowly coming round, but it is slow for us. Yeah. So we're sure that it'll come. Clearly these vehicles are going to need repairs, but we're not seeing it yet.
Yeah, and again, potentially disrupted by, what we're kind of seeing in the news headlines at the moment in terms of second waves of virus, not necessarily obviously in the UK, but, globally. I'm sure that's kind of denting people's confidences, everywhere generally at the moment. So there's lots going on. So Dave, over to you. So if you can, again, just give us a little insight in terms of, we've obviously looked at the volumes, we've talked in the past few weeks, the industry generally is around about 65%. It sort of seems to be somewhere between 60 and 70%. We've kind of all got our sights set on 80% by Q4. We think we'll be doing, quite well. Again, that's, a generic statement, but, how are you experiencing things in your own business?
Yeah, I mean, as you just said, we are 65% of our, pre-COVID volumes, with that sort of similar note of employees back as well. So we're as positive as we can be in this situation. The furlough part still runs out, to October. But this is the time now. We've had 2 months really fully back. From being closed in April. We had a stutter in May, and then June, July has pretty much plateaued with the volume. It's not seeing huge increases. Interesting on the slides you showed earlier, Scotland for us has held up well, and it looks like it's holding up well on those slides. So that sort of compares to what we're seeing. The toughest part for us, and I guess for most of the body shops, really is your people. You look after your people. We always have, and want to continue doing that. The people have come first. In this before profit, and we want to get as many people back to work as possible. They're sat out there on furlough at the moment, and obviously that there is an end point that we've got to reach in it. And if the volume does come back to 80%, if it does next year, but you can't wait till then. So, restructuring conversations we're having between us at the moment, which is, not what we wanted to do, not what we planned for this year. But unfortunately, we're going to, have those conversations and restructure the business so it can maintain and continue, as we did before. We had a really, really good business when we came into COVID. And I intend us to have a really good business when we come out the other side, if not better. That we found lots of opportunities and lots of inefficiencies, etc., which this is exposed, which is good. Good in lots of ways, not good in terms of your people. But it is a time to sort of do that restructure now and set ourselves again for the last quarter of the year, really. June and July have been good examples for us in P&L terms as what the business can do with that amount of people, with that volume. And if you're seeing that as successful to a degree, although you've got the elephant over there, which is all your staff, I think that stands you in good stead to say your business will maintain itself and be sustainable when we come through the other side. So I'm positive, and the team are positive from what we've seen in June and July. We'll have a really good business going forward again, as long as we don't have another wave and lockdown again, which will knock everyone for six. I should think most repairers who are back now are in similar situation, and it's a self-preservation job at the moment, looking after your own people and your own business and your customer base until we're through, the next stage of this virus. And the next stage is the restructuring, the furlough ending, and then seeing what businesses are left. I think from your last webinar, Richard Steer said, he felt hopefully the opportunity hadn't gone to make some changes in the industry. I don't think it has gone. I don't think we've reached the critical point yet when things will have to be discussed with insurers. I would think the insurers at the moment, they've got their own issues to deal with, whether they're going to come back to their businesses or not, or stay home working. Everyone's got their own issues to deal with at the moment. And I think until we've sort of washed furlough away and we're hopefully back into some kind of normality, and I think some businesses will fail, and whatever's left at the end of the day, I think that's the time then when we'll pick the pieces up and say, okay, what do we need to change? Because we have, 12 months ago, no one would have predicted this. Not one of us. You could have done as many surveys as you want. No one would have predicted this. It's happened. It's like hailstorms, insurers, risk averse, but they know hailstorm might happen, and it does happen every few years in a certain postcode, so prepare for it. You couldn't prepare for this. No one could. It's happened, but we know what it's like now. We know what it feels like, and we'll know what to do if it comes again, and the likelihood of it coming again is, probably quite high. Mm-hmm. So we've got to prepare our own business. Insurers have got to prepare their own networks, and make sure, and suppliers have got to make sure they're partnered with all the right people, so they are, sustainable. Everyone's sustainable to carry on, in this industry when we come out the other side.
Dave, can I ask, can you see any long-term change, permanent changes as a result of what you've gone through now? So in terms of process and anything else really, Can you see anything permanently changing for you guys?
Well, internally, I mean, the process we had, we lived and died by. What it's done is reinforce the process we had was good, but we've got to do it on almost a smaller site by site way of doing it. So cut out any other inefficiencies. But to do that, we are going to need to partner with our insurers and say, what can we do about the clunky bits in the chain that affect us both, to sort of smooth the cost base out across all the things that we do and we're asked to do. How can we join that up so it's more fluid? And all we can do is change our own workings internally, and obviously keep having conversations with our insurer partners to see what can be done. I mean, insurers are big, they're always described as big oil tankers. You pull the rudder full turn and it takes 2 years later the decision's made. That isn't strictly true. I mean, insurers, certainly ones we are approved for, have been really quick and flexible to make decisions. I mean, LV noted highly in my eyes above the rest at the moment because they have made quick decisions that have helped us now through when we need it. And that needs to be said. And other insurers have tried other things. Some are slower than others, but they can do it if they really want to, and want you as part of their network and want you to succeed, and us all to be able to carry on giving the customer the journey. Everyone's got to make that move and do something about it, so we can all succeed at the other side.
And that's, interesting points, because many of the insurers that we've had featured in previous weeks, it's been a case of, it's the wrong term to use, but, surprise themselves in how quickly, they managed to, get a whole host, thousands of people out of the building, working from home, and then start to, look at things and as you say, join the dots up a little bit more smoothly than perhaps ever done before. And so it's been great to see how quickly everyone's moved, and some great points there, Dave. Nobody would have seen this 12 months ago. I think, again, as a case in point, I hark back to the first webinar we held on the 18th of March, and we were talking about, something was happening, something was coming, but we hadn't felt anything at that point. A week, 2 weeks later, it was almost, everyone had kind of, we'd gone into lockdown and everyone had just kind of scrabbling around for what to do. So it's been a really interesting path to follow. And Phil, as I alluded to, we've not really heard too much from a kind of product supplier, the supply chain itself. So just give us a little bit of an insight in terms of where you are currently as a business, and just a brief overview of what the journey's been like for you.
Yeah, well, the journey's been really twofold. We have obviously within our business we have an external and have an internal function. The internal function obviously was a priority, certainly in the short term. We needed to offer continuity of supply to many of our key partners, our key distribution partners, and ultimately our key body shop partners. And that sort of progressed as we went through the system. Initially, we saw difficulty centred around product coming in. It wasn't necessarily to do with product demand, but in terms of transportation, borders being open, and there was obviously a lot of added time in terms of delivery in. The only saving grace in that situation was obviously the demands at that time had reduced. We've all been in a situation where we haven't got product and the demand is high. This was the other way round. So the demand was low and product was coming in extremely slowly. But we've had to manage our business accordingly as well, not just from a local perspective, but also from a global perspective. We're a global manufacturer. Obviously, we manufacture in Portugal. And what we're seeing at the moment is the challenges that we had in our business in March and April is very much resonating now in other markets. So we have regular contact with our affiliated businesses via webinar, and via Zoom and the likes, and we've very much seen that what was happening to us in April and May is very much now happening in markets like Mexico and Brazil. While we were sitting with our tin hats on, they were operating quite normally, and now it's role reverse. So from a global perspective, for the group, it's been challenging. I feel that in terms of the local market today, we're starting to try and ramp ourselves up. Obviously, the market was very reactive at the very beginning. So the need for a technical person or a salesperson bowling into a body shop in the months of May and June would probably have been met with disapproval. So we're now starting to see that we feel that the market will start to open more so as we move into after the holiday period in September. So we're now starting to gear our business up, both internally and externally, to ensure that we've got the right measures and the right support in place at the right time. Because I think that's going to be the critical thing, is the time element of when the people come back in at the right time, not just for body shops, but for distribution and also for the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see much changing in terms of operationally how you do that business? So you've kind of said about your field staff being out there going to see body shops. Is that going to transition? Will you be doing more of this kind of stuff, communicating with customers?
I think that if somebody would have said to me back at the beginning of the year that we'll be holding majority of our meetings via Zoom or Skype or Teams, I would have said never in the month of Sundays. It's not how we operate. We're very much people focused, and it's completely changed the way that we now operate. So we're now seeing not just at global level in terms of the group interacting on a weekly basis via Teams and Zoom, but we're also doing that locally as well. And I think that, for example, we've got some new products that we want to bring to market in sometime in the near future. So we're going to have to gear ourselves up to be more focused about presenting those products in a different way. So how do we do that? We're going to have to use the web. We're going to have to use social media. We're going to have to use different platforms for certainly in the next 2 or 3 months than we have previously, which is very much feet on the street, people contact, demonstrating product. So there's a bit of a learning curve for all involved, and each day we find a new challenge. So.
Great, thanks very much, Phil. Peter, I'll come across to you in terms of business plans. I think somebody mentioned on a webinar a few weeks ago they'd already been through 5 or 6 this year. And what does a business plan for QBE for an insurer look like at the moment?
Well, we are an insurer, so we're naturally risk averse. So I think from our point of view, because we're in uncharted waters as it is, we just want to see how things settle down and develop. So a lot of our projects have been put on hold whilst we wait to see how things develop over the coming months, and things hopefully get back to normal sooner rather than later. But I think until the dust has settled, it's a case of we've just got to watch and wait. Yeah. So, as I said, many things have been put on hold. There's still a lot going on, but a lot of the initiatives and planning for the future have been put on hold for now. So I think that's where we are. I won't be surprised if other insurers are doing the same. But it's uncharted territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's bigger things, if you like, out there at the moment. We've obviously heard the Mitsubishi kind of pulling out or exiting Europe. PSA only yesterday, I think, acquired a recycling specialist or a salvage. ABI insurance premiums at their lowest since 2016. The UK's largest repair network publicly announcing it's kind of up for sale, if you like. We've seen the Trailblazer groups combine. So not only is there this kind of pandemic situation going on, but there's a million and other things going on in the industry right now. Dave, from your point of view, it just seems to all be happening at once. I mean, much of it's been a long time in the pipeline, but it kind of all just seems to be landing, if you like.
Yeah, well, it does, yeah. I mean, to pick up on a few of your points there, You know, nationwide, obviously, if that's been sold before in my lifetime, probably twice, I don't know. You know, if that sells, I don't know what difference that makes really. It's sold before, as I say, it hasn't really had an impact on other repairers, I don't think. For the insurers and the suppliers, I guess it's the unknown for them on who purchases it or what happens to Nationwide. And, you know, I hope it does continue nationwide. You know, I wouldn't want to see a lot of people out of work, even more so than the situation we're faced with. So I hope for the people of Nationwide, it does, you know, find a buyer and carries on. Trying to think what the other part of what you said then, Mark.
Well, with the people side of things, so I don't know the echo. You know, again, I mentioned the Trailblazers, a joined forces.
Oh, yeah.
Which obviously you're involved in, and the collision repair sector group. You've already mentioned, you know, people redundancies are out there in the industry. How do those, you know, two go hand in hand? Are we kind of in a better position that we now got a greater pool of people to choose from, or does it?
Well, I think the pool of people is an old pool of people. Unfortunately, you know, the age of the industry of the technicians is, you know, too old because we didn't bring youth in. You know, which is what Autoraise are addressing. Have been trying to for the last sort of 4 or 5 years since it started again, and making good headway until COVID again. So, you know, I think if technicians do get pushed out, which they will, obviously due to redundancies, etc., across the board, those technicians may retire. They may go on and do something else rather than coming back into the industry. The danger being, I guess, if volumes return to some kind of normality first quarter of next year, those people won't be there to be taken back on because they'll have found something else. But if there's less body shops to go to, I don't know where they're going to go. And I think that even more reinforces the need for youth and apprenticeships in the industry. Those are the people we need to, you know, continue with the industry. The technology pieces that we're all looking at the moment, scrabbling around trying to make things happen, it's young people who understand the technology and will come up with the ideas and better thoughts than you know, us old ones hanging on to it. So, you know, the more youth we can get into the industry, the better. I know Autoraise have, you know, joined those Trailblazers together for a purpose. You know, there was a single skilled Trailblazer, a multi-skilled. Now they're merged. That's taken the conflict away. And they're all aiming for the same goal, you know, to find an endpoint assessment so we can get the apprentices that are currently midway through their apprenticeships or nearly at the end of it, like some of ours are, so they can get qualified and move on. So it's a really important task that's still been going on, even though COVID's been happening. Autoraise itself has had to, you know, sit there and hold and not talk to repairers, etc. You know, what Bob's had to be, you know, had to sit at home and be furloughed like, you know, the bulk of everyone else, but still, you know, trying to work and trying to make things happen in the background, because there'll come the point when we need to go again, when the training centres are open, the colleges are back open, and we need to, you know, move that on. And the charity, you know, its sole purpose was to bring young people in and help this industry grow and maintain itself and be sustainable. And everybody's got a part to play in that. And, you know, a lot of insurers, a lot of suppliers supported Autoraise from day one and have continued to. You know, and I implore the ones that aren't supporting Autoraise, this is the time to put your hand in your pocket and support it, because it needs, what a waste of everyone's time and effort if that failed. You know, before we come out the side of it, we need Autoraise in the industry to, you know, continue the good work they've done and get the apprentices where they should be. And everyone needs to do that. So every claims director in every insurance company, you know, whenever they retire, they can say, I was part of this legacy that continued this, you know, this industry with young people. You know, that's why I implore them to support Autoraise.
Great stuff. Well, there's a rousing cry, so a rallying cry, and some support coming in from Paul Collins and Louise Willicott there. Again, if anyone's got questions and or comments, feel free to put them in the chat, the comments, or the Q&A panel for any questions. Phil, I'm going to come across to you. So in terms of, if you like, the sort of rest of 2020 and potentially beyond, you're obviously sharing lots of information amongst your peers within Indasa and affiliate organisations. What are you picking up from those countries that are potentially, ahead of us in terms of this curve? Are there changes in relationships, how they're doing business, human behaviours that they're seeing, that they're sharing with you?
I think at this stage, there's not anybody who's that much further ahead than we are. Certainly, when I look at the German market as an example, you can look at Germany and say that Germany hasn't been impacted as badly as a country like the UK. I have some personal involvement with the German market as well. We certainly saw a bit more standardised trading within the German market during the months of March, April and May. So they were definitely ahead of where we were in terms of the day-to-day business. We are seeing certainly their market open up a little bit more. So our sales function is very much at 100% in the German, in particular in the German market. I know that's the case in other European markets now. It's starting to open up a little bit more. Certainly in the likes of Portugal and Spain, we're starting to see a bit more activity. But again, of course, there is it's ever changing. We've seen this week alone in terms of what's happening in Spain. Yesterday, news in the news about the German market again seeing a spike. So I don't think anybody at this moment in time is out of the woods. And I think the biggest challenge for all markets and all businesses has been the social distancing aspect. And I think until we start to see a relaxation on that, we're not really going to see all markets at their full potential. That's the reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter, would you, again, from your experience with your kind of European hat on, if you like, what are we learning? What are you learning from other nations, and how they're re-emerging?
I think it's pretty much similar to Phil, actually. We are seeing that different hotspots in Europe. So Spain was getting back on its feet. Now it's obviously parts of it are suffering. But I think we're seeing, I'm reluctant to use the words BAU, but we are seeing, certainly within the broader European piece, they are getting back to normal. Certainly Italy and Germany, they're getting back to what we would have considered more normality than what we are. So it's interesting in the sense that the impact of people's change of working environment, i.e. most people working from home, all of a sudden there's no more rush hours anymore, and that's having an impact on obviously incident rates and etc. So these things are all playing a part, but we are seeing, as far as Europe's concerned, probably a speedier return to normal in certain parts of it.
Okay. Yeah. And what do you think the impact will be on those countries? So we've mentioned Germany, both Phil and yourself. We're now kind of looking at the headlines, and various states within Germany are kind of regressing with this. What is the impact? How do you deal with that as well from your side, Peter?
I think from our side, as an insurer, we deal with claims. That's what we do. So there's no change there really. It's just the frequency by which we get them, and at the moment that frequency is low. So where things are getting back up to normal, i.e., in other parts of Europe, then we're just dealing with it. From our own workforce point of view, we've retained the same amount of people. No one's been furloughed. Everyone's been working from home. I mean, as an organisation, our IT function has done an absolutely amazing job in providing the ability for everybody to access all our platforms from home, and that's right across the globe. So whether they're in Malaya, Sydney, Hong Kong, America, they're able to access the systems, and it's been done robustly. So they've done a tremendous piece of work. But obviously, I think we're not in our own from that point of view, and it's having a big impact on what's happening in the marketplace. Just look at the number of offices that people aren't returning to, and obviously it impacts on sandwich shops, coffee shops. There's the travel that I mentioned earlier. Everything's impacted by it. So it's going to take a while before things do get back to normal. But when we look across the channel, if you like, to Europe, we can see things getting back to normal. Mm. But we entered this probably 2 or 3 weeks behind mainland Europe, and we're seeing that now.
Yeah. Okay. And Phil, what about yourself? As as we've said, other nations or regions potentially go into a second wave, a second lockdown. Better prepared now in terms of how you'd manage it, do we think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I come back to the fact that we've been very resilient. I believe. I think the industry has been very resilient when I compare it to perhaps other markets. Obviously, being an abrasive manufacturer, we're not just supplying into the automotive market. And I was saying earlier on that, I think that the automotive market has continued to trade through this, but I've seen other markets, like the decorative market, for example, not trade, because I think that some of the distribution points would be deemed to be more retail than perhaps trade associated. But I think that when we look at what was happening in Italy at the very dark times, we saw a lot of manufacturing still being implemented, products still being supplied, and I think that we've all learnt from this. So I think that plans have been put in place from a global perspective to ensure that we offer a level of continuity moving forward. But again, we're learning all the time with this, and I suppose it's having the plans in place at the right time, as we've seen how quickly this thing raises its head, and how quickly people need to respond to it. But I would believe that most businesses, in particular ourselves, are now well equipped to deal with potentially a second phase.
Yeah. And on that, Dave, again, kind of linking the two, just seen a question come in from Daniel Aythorne regarding sort of contract renewals or terms. And I've seen your response there, regarding let things settle first before there's any kind of, need to do that or necessity to do that. But can you explain a little bit more on that, really, your thoughts there?
I don't think this is the time to be doing that at the moment. We need help. The repairers need help, obviously, with the extra things we're doing due to coronavirus cleanliness, the precautions we're taking, that we need to take to protect the policyholders and our own staff. So the support needed, I think, to get us through this part of it. But then I think, the things I spoke about last time I was on, Mark, the static costs that are with us that, you don't see until you're closed. The costs are just sat there all the time, courtesy cars, estimating costs, etc. They're the parts of the contract that probably need looking at and discussing, but I don't think it's right to alert them to it now, and which is what we've done. But I think, and you can start discussions, but I think actually physically sitting down and rewriting a contract and saying this is how it should be, will be first quarter next year at the earliest, really, to do that properly. Because otherwise you're going to have a few stabs at it and not actually really, meaningfully change the contract. It will just be an add-on or a temporary addition because of what we're going through. It needs to be a permanent addition. So those are the things that need to change. And I don't think we're in a position at the moment, or anyone is. We're all guessing, aren't we? We're all giving our best stab at what we think is going to happen. And it's not normal times, so nobody knows what's going to happen. No one's got that crystal ball, but hopefully we will. We're all hoping that we'll, first quarter of next year will be a bit more stable with volume. The industry, I think we're very, very resilient. This industry, I think Phil said earlier, And we are, I mean, we've been through 3 or 4 great recessions and come out the other side, no problem, and the body shop industry is a pretty recession bulletproof if you've got insurer approvals, because which insurer ever goes bump? None. So, you're pretty much guaranteed to keep being paid as long as you can keep repairing them. So I don't think we need to fear that, but we do need to not be in this position, I guess, where repairers feel we're not getting enough money or not getting, and I don't mean on labour rates, etc. But there's lots of costs that are geared to us that we have to do that maybe we shouldn't either have to do, or we could share the cost or do something different. And those are the things that need, the cream needs to come to the surface, and we say those are the issues we had. And this is why it's hard as an industry to make money and keep the industry flowing. So to be successful and have a brilliant industry and encourage young people want to come into our industry, we should all collectively make it better. So I think it will be, first quarter next year when we can have those meaningful chats.
And Peter, on that, does that kind of, is that something that's in your minds in terms of, the potential for these conversations, the necessity for these conversations to take place?
Yeah, I do think that. I mean, these types of conversations should always be going on, regardless of whether we're in a pandemic or not. Because as collectively, we need to be working together to improve things all the time, and part and parcel of improving things is mutual support. So there are things that obviously are matters of importance to an insurer, and there are things that are matters of importance to a repairer and body shop. And we need to be talking and communicating better as regards to what we can do to overcome the challenges and oil the wheels between the two of us, really.
Yeah. Great statement there. Now, Phil, from where you sit, from your perspective, you obviously talked about kind of, the changes that are taking place internally within the business, the wider market influences that are impacting on Indasa and the world over. Do you think we'll ever return to what we know as normal, or are we really in a new world kind of thing?
That's a good question. I knew I'd get that first. Thank you for that. No, I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to this subject. I understand that there are going to need to be changes. We're going to need to make tweaks, but I don't see a massive overhaul here. The way I see life is that people still require cars. Cars will still be crashed. Cars will still need to be insured. We're still going to need vehicle manufacturers. We're going to still need a skilled workforce to repair vehicles. So I don't really see there been the necessity for a massive overhaul here. But I do think that we are going to see some shift in sand in terms of the market. I do think that we're going to see some definite challenges, not just, right the way through the supply chain, we're going to see some challenges. And I suppose we come back to what we talked about before, about a bit more consolidation in certain areas where we can have like-minded people thinking the same way, which can only benefit and add value to our industry. So that's how I see things. I don't see a huge overhaul and a different way of working. I just think that we will get back to some sort of normality, as Dave referred to, probably 2021. I don't see it happening this year, realistically. And then I think that we'll, as soon as we get back to some sort of normality, things become normal.
Yeah, that's very true. And you kind of forget what was normal in the first place, if that makes sense. Dave, what about yourself? So same question to yourself. Will the business of repair ever be the same again to what we knew? Or again, like Phil, there might not be huge fundamental changes, but will there be, some real differences in perhaps, whether it's the way you capture work, whether it's the way you process work, hand it back to customers, is there new lines of thinking there?
Yeah, definitely. And, I think it's taken a global pandemic for us to see it, maybe, or the things that have been put off, we'll do it next year, we'll do it never, whatever. Those things have started to already, bear fruit and technology, especially because of having to work from home, The claims, the automated claims, is starting to build now. It's been just sat there for such a long time with just some insurers doing, very disjointed. I think the communication, the technology part, all wants joining up, however that's done, and it will create huge, efficiencies for us. Workshop-wise, I don't see it really I think Angela's just said we can't work from home. Well, we can't unless you can get a car in your living room. We can't. So, and if you put it in your living room, you've got to get it back out. We've got to go to work and we've got to make it safe and safe for a long time. So I think, there'll be gaps in the workshop, there'll be gaps in the office, etc. How we have to, socially distance or keep it as safe as we can. I think that part will, remain for a long time, maybe forever, I don't know. But I don't see us fundamentally changing what we do. I think it's a good thing that this gives us the opportunity to, I ask you the question back, does anyone want to go back to how it was before? I don't really. I look at it the other way and think I'd rather create a new way of doing it. And that's the opportunity we've got in front of us now to do that. Why do we want to do it the way we were doing it before? Were we all happy with that? I doubt it. Let's change the way we do it. I'm fed up of Zoom calls. Even though it has been brilliant, and I feel much safer without having to wear my mask talking to you, Mark. But the face-to-face side of it is nice. It's nice to do business with people that you can see and shake their hand, etc. I think that's quite sad. And sad, with your family, you can't hug them and all that sort of thing. It's quite a sad situation. So I hope we get past that stage and we can, come back out again in that respect and start doing, like your conference in November, etc. Let's hope we're in a better position and people can come back out, if you like, and feel safe to come back out and start working again. So, I'm hoping that all, starts to come back to some kind of normality and we do the odd Zoom call rather than it being the norm.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely. It's almost, it's the business stress test that nobody ever envisaged they would have to do or would ever dream of doing it to themselves, really. But I think with that, the great thing that we certainly heard over the weeks is picking out those plus points, and there has been a lot of those in terms of, retrospectively looking at your business, how you're doing things. Who your people are, etc., etc. So I think there's, there are those kind of hidden gems in there that we can take from all of this. And Peter, for yourself as an insurer, have you kind of now had time to almost, settle in and reflect? And are there areas that you think you particularly, are going to improve, and what's going to be the first thing that you kind of set your sights on perhaps doing or achieving?
Right, big questions there. So Mark, but I guess, you can't. I don't think any business can go through something like this and come out the other side without changing something. You've got to learn from it, and hopefully we will be trying our best to learn from the experiences we've gone through. And part and parcel of that will be obviously appreciating that not everybody can work from home, but I think for those people that can, there will be a greater acceptance of people working from home within businesses. Obviously, there was a reticence before that some people might not be as productive if they work from home, but I think that has largely been blown out of the water, to be honest. So I think there's a greater acceptance within businesses that people can be productive by working from home. So if they're able to do that, then great. If they're not, then I think then it's down to the personal level of, or the amount of interaction between people. So, and what I mean by that is, from an insurer, I guess, wherever we can automate elements of the claims process, one, to make it easier for the customer to have a resolution to their claim, but also to, if you like, identify, focus and prioritise what is happening to a claim and where that claim is going, so that we can have, hopefully, you'll never get end-to-end claim without personal touch, but I think there's an appreciation that if we look 6 months ago, everyone's BCP was about premises going down or systems going down where you couldn't get access to it. And clearly this has shown that really with the BCP, you also need to think about where you haven't got access to people. So that has to be, there has to be an awareness about that as well, and how you can adapt your processes and internal processes and procedures to try and mitigate some of that going forward.
Yeah.
So a greater adoption of IT and software, I guess, in the claims process.
Brilliant. All right, great stuff. Now, again, we kind of, what have we got? Less than 10 minutes to go. So just wanted to touch upon, if you like, the August. Typically, the holiday season, schools break up, everyone disappears on a nice holiday. Not going to be the case this year, perhaps. Referring back to last week's webinar, we took a poll. 61% of respondents did not expect the summer break to have any major impact on volumes in terms of where we are at the moment. Dave, do you hold that belief as well? Do you think we'll see a drop? Do you think we'll see an increase with staycations, etc.?
Well, I think what's happening with Spain and France, they were probably two big countries that we would flock to naturally. Maybe with what's happening now, I don't know. Maybe it's a government ploy for us to all stay here in Cornwall. I don't know. But if that is the case, and it puts people off, it might do our industry the power of good if everyone stays here and our economy. So if that is the case, I can't see August's volumes moving at all. I think if anything, it will go slightly down on July, is my thought. September, if the schools all go back, that's where I see the next little jump in volume coming. And I think, and I think it all corresponds in August. I think August's a big month because furlough's changing and furlough's getting closer to the end. So I think August, September will be when the businesses are all looking at themselves saying, what are we going to do? If volume dips slightly in August as well, it may push them to make the decision a bit quicker. But fearful of what might come in September, October. I mean, what if claims did shoot back up in September and you've suddenly made a load of people redundant? What happens then? There's lots of concerns, but I think August, September, the two telling months now, where we'll find out what businesses are going to survive this. And I think we'll see more, at the end of August that aren't going to make it through or have made a huge change. So, but volumes-wise, I think it's going to slightly go down, and then I'm hopeful September, October comes up to this, the holy grail at the moment is 80%. If it reaches there, that's where we're going to see it. Naturally, with the clocks changing and the dark nights, as we've always said, and the schools going back, we've always had that increase. So I don't see it being any different if the schools all go back. I think it will, jump back up, but not, to where it was.
Peter, does that sound kind of familiar with yourselves in terms of what you're planning?
Yeah, I would agree with what Dave was saying there. That's certainly our expectation. That's our thought process. I can't see it deviating from that at the moment.
All right, okay. And there's this, I don't know if anyone's seen this sort of horrible term that I read on the BBC, zombie companies, where it kind of refers to what Dave said. A lot of businesses out there being supported by government packages right now, and as that steadily decreases, it becomes the moment of truth for many. Phil, you've got the last say in this webinar, so it's over to you. What you can know. But in terms of Indasa, again, would you kind of think, August is going to be a month for us to kind of steady the ship and, rediscover where we are?
Well, again, in terms of from the global point of view, we do see lots of markets during the month of August shut down for 2 weeks. Even our own production generally shuts down for that period of time. I think that we're going to see a change, certainly in Europe, with regards to that. So I think that there was some shutdowns, certainly in the May period, for organisations where people where organisations and manufacturing took a week in May. and you'll see skeleton staff operating certainly during the August period. I don't think there's going to be closures like we normally see, wholesale closures. In terms of the UK thing, yeah, we're budgeting that it's going to be below where we'd expect it to have been in July. And like everybody else, we're pinning our hopes on the fact that when we get back to the schools get back to some sort of normality, we'll start to see September and October start to see an uplift in both in terms of claims, and we're slightly behind the curve in terms of where body shops and distribution are, so we're seeing things a little bit later than the guys at the sharp end. So yeah, I think that we're going to see a slight downturn, but I'm also mindful that a lot of these businesses are going to have some challenges because they're already operating on skeleton staff. Some of them skeleton staff have been, certainly within our business as well, that they've been operating all the way through this process. They're looking for some time out. We've got people who are furloughed. So it's going to be a challenge for businesses, in particular body shops, to manage the month of August. But I think we will see a downturn in probably in claims and in relative terms, in terms of sales.
Okay, gentlemen, it's been an honour. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So somebody alluded to it in the chat earlier. This is our 20th webinar today, nonetheless. I know I don't look any older than the day we started doing them. So we're going to take a little break. Steady with those comments, Dave. People can hear you. So we are due to take a little break for the month of August. We will be returning on the Wednesday, the 2nd of September. Do not fear. We will bombard you with invites and calendar diary invites for that. So over the past 20 weeks, we've seen 4,500 viewers. We've heard from about 60 industry experts. We've produced 2 industry surveys. We've been involved in another 2 joint body shop surveys with the MBRA and Trend Tracker. As I said, we're back on Wednesday the 2nd. Dave's already mentioned it. Thank you very much, Dave. The money's in the post in terms of our physical event planned for Tuesday the 24th of November. Fingers crossed, we're all on track for that. We will be keeping you, updated during August, so do not fear. It's not the last you've heard of me for a month, although many wish it was. But we will be doing some editing, highlights, clips, as well as publishing some podcasts for everybody. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Look out for the LinkedIn group, which is going to go live very shortly as well, the ARC360, as well as the website, which is a couple of weeks off now. Huge thank you to everybody for joining us over the past 20 weeks. Huge thank you to, obviously, yourself, Phil, Dave, and Peter for your time today. We will give a huge thank you, as always, to our corporate partners, so ASIS, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise, and Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and of course our partners, the Green Parts Specialist, Indasa, and the Innovation Group. There's some of the beautiful faces we've seen over the past 20 weeks there, some highlights from everybody. So once again, a massive thank you for joining us today, and we will see everybody in a month's or so's time. Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.